Hello everybody, how is it going? So today we're gonna talk about tonal balance. So I more or less talked about this in other videos, but in this one I really want to give you a concise overview of what tonal balance is and how to tweak it based on the source that you got on the track on how to achieve a good tonal balance. So really quickly, what is tonal balance? Tonal balance is basically the ratio of frequencies, so the curve of your track, how much bass you have compared to your mids, compared to your highs. So basically the curve, the frequency curve of your track overall. So it's not too hard to understand, I think. That's just a very rough concept. So it's basically the art of EQing, you know, because that's how you change the frequencies and the ratio of frequencies. Well, you have balance as well, just the volumes as well will affect the ratio of frequencies because you might boost the bass instruments, etc. But quickly, let's just compare the rough mix I got from this artist, so Elite Music. This is the track which I mixed because it's a winning track from a competition, a mixed competition by Ryan Leach. I will post the links to his channel in the description. And let's just compare what I did and the rough mix, and I will talk a bit about tonal balance after that. Okay, so this is his rough mix. And that's my mix. So let's talk about the differences. Of course, I think my mix is a bit more tonally balanced, but let me just preface by saying that there is not one absolute perfect tonal balance. It depends on taste as well. But you will notice that in my mix, there is quite a bit less high mids. In his mix, the violins are just very forward in the high mids in the 2-3K range, around here. And the thing is, my voice. The thing is, what happens is if you have too much of one frequency, so if the track is a little bit tonally unbalanced, what happens is that your ears will focus on that one frequency and it will mask the detail in the other frequencies. So you will miss on some clarity. And focus on, for example, just the choir, the clarity of the male choir underneath here. Compared to this. No, it sounds a bit more like it's being played through a radio, like like a sort of boombox thing. And the thing is, when something is a bit too tonally unbalanced, you miss on some information, so you lose some clarity. So clarity is one positive aspect of tonal balance. You gain clarity, you gain balance, of course, and you gain the ability to hear different instruments at once, because you don't have like one instrument just occupying one frequency range very strongly and thus dominating the other frequency ranges and masking other instruments. You know, here it's very violin centric because the violin is just so pushy around this 2K range, and you sort of miss out on the other instruments. And you miss out on some bigness and impact and largeness from the cello, for example, because the violin is so nasal. So that's one thing. And so yeah, it's important for clarity and impact. If you pay attention to the bass here, you have a bit more separation, a bit more clarity. So that's good. But now let's talk about why clarity is not always better. Now you have to understand that you can't also just boost the highs of the strings to extreme amounts. You can't get the maximum clarity, the maximum cleanliness. If the sound is too clinical, it's too EQ'd, it will sound fake. It won't sound natural. You will get a tone that's very clean. Sure, you will hear everything, but it will sound weird and not like a real orchestra. You know, if I just go too far with my EQ here, that's very clean, that's very precise, but do you want strings that sound like this? No. So you have to keep in mind that it's all about balance. You can make things cleaner, you can cut the muddiness, you can get more impact, more evenness between the frequencies, a better ratio of bass and low mids and treble. But to some degree, you have to understand the arrangement. You have to understand what you're dealing with and how much you can push the EQs, how much you can clean things up, how much high mids how much nasalness you can cut, how much low mids you can cut until it sounds too clean and fake, right? So there's no point in getting like, a mix that's too clean is just as bad as a mix that's very raw. And the tricky part is when you're kind of a beginner and you're not very confident with your decisions, you might just listen to a different track and hear a certain tonal balance and feel like your track needs to fit that tonal balance. But it actually doesn't, and you might ruin your track and make a tone that's completely not coherent with the arrangement because you just heard a track that has this tonal balance. But every track is different, and if you go to different genres, let me go to a great EDM mix, one of my favorites, so AU5 Divinorum album. So this track is called Stargate. It's very crisp, right? So if you go back to my mix after that, like, oh, mid-range, lots of mid-range, but yeah, but it's orchestral. This is very different. And if you go back to the composer's mix, it's like, oh, 1K, 2K. And, it's all about perspective. If you get your ears used to like EDM, very crisp EDM, and then you're like, okay, let's go back to my orchestral track, and you listen to it, and you're like, oh, okay, now maybe it's too muddy. Well, it's actually not. Because if you base your ideal tonal balance concept idea on this might be great for dubstep or whatever. But if you switch to orchestral music, oops, let me mute this. You apply the same kind of EQ. It's just not gonna work. It's gonna sound horrible. It's gonna sound horribly fake and not like an orchestra at all. So it's all about perspective, right? That's what I'm trying to say here. So of course, this is not something that you can get right away. It comes with experience, but you need to have the perspective to judge what arrangement you have and what you can do with the EQ. But at the same time, I still recommend keeping references of other genres around. So you have kind of the max, like the boundaries of what you can do. Take the crispiest, nicest sounding EDM you can get. And you know that, okay, this is kind of the crispiest sound that exists, and that sounds nice, right? Just know your reference. And take something that's very warm but still sounds good to you, like a really warm film score that's kind of like maybe an underscore or whatever. So you can have sort of a box of boundaries, right, in your referencing process. But then if you're a bit lost, try to figure out how your track should be based on a similar track. Don't just reference similar tracks. Reference also other tracks like the one I just played here, but know that you shouldn't match it. When you reference, don't try to match it because it all depends on your arrangement. So guys, I hope that helped, and I will see you later. Cheers!